Okay, so I think we'll make a start. So thank you to those that are joining us today. So I'm Sam Lloyd and I'm a clinical psychologist working in paediatrics, and I'm joined by my colleague Amy Woodham today. So this is the last in a series of webinars in relation to living with a cardiac condition. So one of the earlier webinars looked at managing the impact of having a child with a cardiac condition. And this webinar hopefully leads on quite nicely from that. So we're going to specifically be focusing on mindfulness today, and considering that as a strategy that can be used to help in that respect. So in terms of managing the impact of having a child with a cardiac condition, but lots of other situations in life as well. So we'll be having to think about what mindfulness is, and also the opportunity to try out some strategies and think about maybe ways that you can take that forward after the webinar today. As I said, I'm joined by my colleague Amy, who will be helping us answer any questions that you might have at the end. Next slide, please, Amy. So just a bit of housekeeping then. It's not intended that this webinar is going to be distressing. As I said, it's going to be focusing more around mindfulness as potentially a helpful strategy to either find out more about, or maybe that you are already quite experienced in it and it's an opportunity to just have a moment to do an exercise or two. But do look after yourselves. It's difficult to predict sometimes what might come up in sessions like this. So please do take care of yourselves. So if you need to have a break at any point, that's absolutely fine. If you need to stop and leave the webinar, that's also okay. We are going to be recording the webinar, so it will be available afterwards for you to come back to. And just to let you know, it will just be the main part of the webinar that we'll be recording, so we won't be recording the Q&A section at the end. We will be looking at some resources and signposting to further information around mindfulness, but also places that you might be able to go to if you do feel after watching this webinar that you would like some more support. As I said, we're going to have the opportunity at the end for questions. So if you do have any questions, if you type those in the Q&A or chat function, and we'll pick up on those at the end. Just to say in relation to that due to confidentiality, we'll only be able to answer more general questions around mindfulness or perhaps services, rather than those relating specifically to your family or your child. So just bear that in mind with those questions. Any technical problems, let us know in the chat as well. As always, I find with technology, there's often technical issues. So if you can't hear us, or if there's anything that's not working correctly, just type that in the chat box and we will do our best to help resolve that. Just to say as well, we really value feedback. We'd love to hear your comments and feedback on how you found this today, because we're really keen on making sure that we make these sessions as valuable and as helpful as possible to those of you that have taken the time to attend. Okay, thanks, Amy. So I want to start off this webinar on mindfulness by having a bit of a think about zebras. And you might think, what on earth has a zebra got to do with mindfulness? And hopefully we can explore that a little bit now. So I want you to imagine there's a zebra. So he's out in his natural habitat, at his watering hole, having a bit of a drink, having a roam around. And suddenly he's faced with a lion. So he sees in his peripheral vision that there's a lion there, and this lion is getting closer and closer. And the zebra responds to this. So his threat system, his fight or flight system, is kicking in at this point. So it's getting him ready to either fight this lion or run off. So basically to, you know, to save himself in whatever way that he needs to. Now things get a little bit hairy, and it's a difficult situation. It's stressful, but luckily the zebra manages to get away. So the lion eventually heads off and leaves him to it. And after about 10 minutes, the zebra kind of returns to normal. So all of that response in terms of the zebra's fight or flight system dampens down. He goes back to focusing on what he was previously. So maybe taking care of other zebras in the family, roaming around on the land. And he doesn't give much more thought to what's happened previously until that situation potentially comes up again. Now, us as humans, we're very, very different to zebras. So as our brains have evolved, we are able to do incredible things. So we have amazing imaginations, we're able to reflect on things, we're able to be creative, which is fantastic. But what comes with this is that we can often get caught up in thinking and caught up in thoughts, which means that we can often find ourselves pulled back to the past. So if we were in that zebra's position, we might be berating ourselves, criticizing ourselves for having been so stupid to put ourselves in that situation. We might be worrying about the future and whether this is going to happen again, always on the lookout for that lion that's around the corner, but being pulled in different directions. So going over what's happened, thinking about the future. And this is completely normal, but what it does mean is that sometimes it's very hard to stay in the present and to focus on those things that we need to focus on, or those things that are important to us and that we want to focus on. Next slide, please, Amy. And just to build on this a little bit, so our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviours and emotions are all linked with each other, along with physical sensations. So what we think can influence what we do, how we feel, what's going on in the body. And again, this is completely normal, and it has an evolutionary purpose, and it's, you know, it's very much what our minds and our bodies are designed to do. However, when we're encountering stressful situations, perhaps a hospital admission or having a child with a cardiac condition, we can sometimes find that we get caught up in a cycle between thoughts and behaviours, feelings and physical sensations. And at times it can be difficult to step out of this, and as I said before, to focus on those things that are important to us and those things that we need to focus on. So hopefully today we're going to be thinking about mindfulness as a strategy to potentially support us with being able to take a step back from those cycles that we can all find ourselves caught up in. Thanks, Amy. So what is mindfulness? So mindfulness is something that's become incredibly popular. So I'm sure that those of you that have joined us may well have heard about mindfulness, if not have either tried it out or perhaps practice it more regularly. And I think there's lots of misconceptions about what mindfulness is. And what mindfulness really is just paying attention in a particular way. So paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally to what's going on in that situation. And it's about teaching ourselves to let go of those things that are perhaps pulling us to the past or to the future and allow us to come back to the present. I wanted to also have a little bit of a think about what mindfulness isn't, recognizing what I said before, which is that there's lots of kind of different ideas, I think, and misconceptions sometimes about what mindfulness is. So if you could have the next slide, please, Amy. So what mindfulness is not. So mindfulness isn't necessarily about kind of sitting cross-legged in a meditative position, or needing to sit for lots of hours, or to chant, although some people find that that works for them. What we're going to be thinking about today is how to apply mindfulness to your everyday life, and ways of doing that in a way that it fits easily and you can easily draw upon it. I think it's also really important to say that mindfulness isn't about emptying your mind of thoughts or not having thoughts. It's not about getting rid of thoughts. It's actually about coming to accept and recognize thoughts and feelings, and that includes difficult thoughts and feelings, as being part of being human. And they are things that are going to come up in situations where we're doing things that are important to us, or things that matter to us. And mindfulness is more about enabling us to notice our thoughts and feelings and be aware of them. And hopefully what that does is allows us to just have enough of a distance away from them to be able to choose how we respond, how we want to react to those thoughts and feelings, rather than being sort of bossed around by them, which we can all experience sometimes. Next slide, please, Amy. So how can mindfulness help? So I've touched on this already, but mindfulness allows us to, as I say, become aware of our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviours, our physical sensations. So often, you know, most of us are on sort of autopilot, and you know, the way that we live, a global pandemic, all of these things add to that, and the fact that we can sometimes kind of go through our lives without really being in the moment, and instead kind of going through the motions and not really fully being present. And the reason that it's helpful to develop this awareness is so that we're able to notice what's going on, rather than sort of reacting without necessarily being aware of what it was that we were thinking or feeling. And as I said, when we notice what we think and feel, and we have an awareness of that, it gives us a choice to think about how we want to respond to those thoughts and feelings. And this is particularly relevant when we are facing difficult situations. And importantly, mindfulness allows us to notice these feelings and sensations in a way that's not judgmental. So being able to take that step back and recognize all thoughts and feelings as being part of being human, and this allows them to potentially have less of a hold and less of an impact on us. Next slide, please, Amy. So the best way, I think, to get a sense of mindfulness is always to give it a try. So what I'm going to do now is to invite you to be involved in a short mindfulness practice with me, so to give it a go. And all you need to do is follow my instructions. And it's an invitation to take part, so it's completely up to you. If you fancy giving it a go, great, you can always come back to it in the recording. Otherwise, absolutely okay to sit and just listen. But if you're up for giving it a go, if you get comfortable where you're sat, and it's best if you do feel comfortable closing your eyes, or otherwise just diverting your gaze down to the floor, just so that there's a little bit less to distract us. And I'd like you, first of all, to just bring your attention to the breath. So you don't need to do any special type of breath, or change your breath in any way. All I want you to do is try and bring the focus of your attention to what it feels like to breathe. So noticing what it feels like as you breathe in and as you breathe out. Just want you to spend a few moments noticing this. Now I'm going to ask you to switch the focus of your attention, and we're going to focus on the body. So we're going to do a scan of the body. I'm going to take you through this. And what I want you to do for each body part that we mention is just see if you can really place the spotlight of your attention on that part of the body. So just curiously noticing what's going on in that part of the body for you right now. So starting at the feet, so noticing what it feels like in this part of the body. So noticing each and every sensation there. So there might be sensations of warmth, of cold, perhaps of tingling or moisture. Try not to judge any of those sensations as good or bad, but just really explore what it's like in this part of the body. What does it feel like right now? And moving from the feet to the lower legs. So again, noticing what it feels like in this part of the body. So noticing what it feels like on the surface of the legs and maybe deeper within the legs. Noticing what sensations are there. And as you do this, your mind may wander. That's completely normal. It's what minds do. But just see if you can notice where it's gone to and just gently bringing it back to the part of the body that we're focusing on. So bringing the attention now up to the thighs, the top of the legs. Again, just trying to pay attention to what sensations are in this part of the body. Moving up to the buttocks, noticing what's going on here. And again, if your mind wanders, and it may do it again and again, just gently bringing it back to the body. Moving up to the abdomen and the lower back. Seeing if you can notice what sensations are here. Moving up to the chest, the top of the back. Again, just trying to notice each and every sensation. Top of the back, the shoulders. So this can be a place that a lot of us carry stress and tension. So just noticing if that's the case for you. And trying, as I said before, not to judge those sensations as bad or good, but just seeing if you can really be in this part of the body in terms of your attention. Moving down to the arms, the hands, noticing what's going on there for you. So is there tingling? Are there sensations of warmth, of coldness? And if there aren't any particular sensations that you notice in a part of the body, that's absolutely fine as well. Just notice that there's not a particularly strong sensation there right now. And moving your attention up to the neck, the head, face. Just scanning to see what sensations are in this part of the body. Each and every sensation. Now I'd like you to let go of that specific part of the body, and I'd like you to bring your attention to the body as a whole. So just noticing what it feels like here where you're sat, so perhaps on a chair or on the sofa. Just like you to take in that sensation of the body as a whole. Maybe notice the bits of your body that are in contact with the chair, with the floor. Just seeing if you can place your attention here for a moment. And again, the mind might wander, just gently noticing where it's gone to and bringing it back. And I'd like you now to again change the focus of your attention. I'd like you to notice the breath once more. So again, not needing to do any special kind of breath, but just bringing your attention to the breath. And this time I'd like you to notice where in the body you can feel the breath the most. So maybe it's the abdomen, the chest. It might be the nostrils where the air enters the body. Just seeing if you can place your attention on this part of the body. Just notice what it feels like to just breathe in, breathe out normally in this part of the body. Spending the next few moments doing this. like you to let go of the breath in terms of your attention. I'd like you to just slowly bring your attention back to the space that you're in. So gently opening your eyes. Maybe you're just bringing a bit of movement to the body, pushing your feet down into the floor, having a bit of a stretch, anything that feels good. Just taking a few moments to ground yourself where you are. So hopefully that's been the opportunity to either try out mindfulness or to spend some time practicing mindfulness. And we're going to have a think now about other ways to incorporate mindfulness into your daily life. So that was quite a short practice, but a more formal practice. And mindfulness, as we said before, doesn't need to be about putting aside big chunks of time and sitting doing a specific practice. Really, any activity can be approached in a mindful way, and this is a really nice way of by paying attention in a particular way to everyday activities that we might kind of brush through and do on autopilot. By bringing that attention to these activities, we're able to be mindful and to experience the benefits of mindfulness in terms of how we're feeling and being able to be aware of our thoughts and feelings. So these are a few common examples that people have found lend themselves easily to almost training ourselves to kind of be mindful in those moments. So perhaps having a cup of tea, and that might be about noticing the process of making that cup of tea, about using our senses, so noticing what it smells like, noticing the taste and the sensation of drinking. And similarly, mindfulness can lend itself to to being done in a really mindful way as well. Which I think for a lot of us, we can often find ourselves eating in a very kind of unmindful way when we're perhaps rushing between different appointments and meetings. Exercise is a good one that can be done mindfully, and a lot of people share that they find gardening really mindful. And I think that's a really nice one because it's the opportunity to sort of be outside, so there's lots of ways to kind of use that experience and things to kind of focus on. So doing the washing up is another one, a task that a lot of us don't often particularly like, or I don't anyway, but it can be an opportunity to practice mindfulness. So really focusing on perhaps the smell of the washing up liquid, the sensation of the bubbles on your skin, any sounds that are associated with that. And mindful wake up can be a really lovely way to start off your day with a bit of awareness and set you up really nicely for the rest of the day. Slide please, Amy. So as I sort of touched upon in some of those examples, using your senses is a really quick and a really effective way to bring you back to the present moment. So drawing on these can really help to ground us when we're noticing that maybe we're being pulled to thinking about things that have happened in the past or have worries about the future and things that might happen. And this can be a really nice one to kind of do anywhere really, and take in our surroundings. And a really nice and quick way of doing this is the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. And this is really simple. So it involves drawing upon these different senses. So noticing 5 things that you can see around you, and you can just mentally do this for yourself now. So I want you to just look around you and notice 5 things that you can see around you. And then 4 things that you can hear. Sometimes this one can be tricky. Just notice 4 things that you can hear around you. And 3 things that you can reach out and physically touch and just notice how those feel. And then these ones can be a little bit more difficult, but noticing two things that you can smell around you. So depending on where you are or the situation you're in, that might be sort of more or less difficult. And then one thing that you can taste, and again, that might be tricky depending on what you're doing. I'd encourage you to, if you sort of try out this practice, to think of particular places or surroundings that you find really relaxing, that kind of lend themselves to mindfulness. And linking back to what I was saying before about the mindful everyday activities, you may well be able to identify some of those times or some of those situations or activities where you're naturally really mindful, where you're taking in your surroundings, when you're really attentive and really paying attention to what's going on. So I think it's really important to say that a strategy such as using your senses might not always feel like the most appropriate strategy. So certainly there might be times perhaps in a hospital admission where it doesn't feel like necessarily kind of paying attention when you're on the ward might feel like the most helpful thing. And I'd encourage you in those situations to perhaps use your break, so going outside or finding some green space nearby to use that type of exercise. Thanks, Amy. Next slide. Another way to do this, so again, if you're finding that the situation that you're in doesn't particularly lend itself to wanting to kind of be mindful and using your senses, you can use imagery instead. To again draw on those senses as a way of grounding yourself and as bringing yourself away from perhaps thinking about what's been happening or any worries about the future. And I'm going to go through a quick exercise now with you, just to try out as an example of how you can use this using your imagination and using imagery. So again, it's an invitation to take part, so it's up to you if you want to try this out, but if you are up for it, closing your eyes if that feels okay, or looking down at the floor. And I'm going to ask you to bring to mind a place. So this can be a real place, it can be somewhere that you go regularly, it could be a special place, it might not be a place you've ever been, but it could be somewhere that you have always wanted to go, or it might simply be somewhere that you sort of make up in your imagination. But the really key things about this place are that it's somewhere that you feel safe, you feel calm, you feel relaxed. So I'm going to give you a few moments just to bring a place to mind that fits that bill. And I want you to really see if you can imagine yourself being in that place. And we're going to use your senses to enable you to do that. So I'd like you to imagine yourself in this place, and I'd like you to notice what you can see around you. So what can you see around you? Are there particular objects or people? Are you inside or outside? Maybe noticing the time of day or the season, colours around you. Just really taking in what it looks like in this place. And then I'd like you to step away from what you can see around you, and I'd like you to just notice what you can hear around you. So are there any particular sounds that are associated with this place? So there might be sounds that are close by, there might be those that are further away in the distance, but just seeing if you can notice what you can hear around you. You to bring your attention to notice what you can physically touch around you. So can you reach out and touch anything that's surrounding you. So there might be particular textures that are associated with this place, things that you can reach out and touch with your fingertips. Perhaps you can notice the sensations on your skin. So is it warm? Is it cold? Maybe you can feel the wind on your skin, or particular clothing that you'd wear in this place on your skin. You feel underneath your feet. Just spending a few moments taking in what you can physically touch around you. And then letting go of this, and I'd like you to bring your attention to what you can smell around you. And again, this might be more difficult, but are there any particular smells that are associated with this place? So they might be pleasant, they might be not so pleasant, they might be subtle, there might be really strong smells associated with being in this place, but just seeing what you can notice. And absolutely okay to notice that this place doesn't have a particular smell right now. And then letting go, moving your attention to focusing on what you can taste. And again, this might be more tricky, but just noticing any tastes that are associated with this place. I'd like you to see if you can now use all of your senses to really imagine yourself in this place. And I'd like you to really notice how it feels to be here. Perhaps notice what you're feeling in your body, any emotions, and just see if you can really tap into those sensations of feeling safe, of feeling calm, feeling relaxed. And as we come back into the space that we're in right now, and out of this place, I just want you to remember that this is somewhere that you can always come if you are needing to feel that sense of being relaxed, of being calm, being safe. As I said before, it might be somewhere where, when your surroundings aren't quite feeling like this is somewhere that you can come to help soothe you. So when you're ready, bringing your attention back to the space that you're in, gently opening your eyes whenever you're ready. Okay, so I hope you found that okay. We could move on to the next slide, Amy. So in terms of how to take this forward and how to get started with mindfulness, as I say, there might be a real mix in terms of people's experiences of mindfulness, but generally setting time aside can be helpful. And we know from a psychological perspective that if we make a plan for something, we are much more likely to follow through with that. And a good way of doing this is to think about, you know, for you, where might this fit in your day? Where's it going to best sit? As with everything, we know that regularly practicing something has the most benefit. So doing little and often, this doesn't need to be, you know, sitting down for an hour every day. It could be, you know, just committing to a couple of times a week at first, just for a few minutes, even, you know, 2 or 3 minutes. Over time, you will see a benefit. As we've said, the senses can be a really effective and quick way to bring you back to the present moment, as can using the body and the breath, which are always with us. So some of these exercises you can adapt to be different lengths, and hopefully these are all things that you could do in most situations, and often without, you know, anyone really being aware that you're using that strategy. And again, key is trying to kind of incorporate that into your daily activities as well, can make that more manageable. Next slide, please, Amy. There's lots of really great resources that are out there if you are interested in accessing some of those and doing more mindfulness. So some really great apps that we'd recommend. So Headspace, Calm and Smiling Mind are all great. Lots of different videos. So on YouTube you can find all sorts of practices of different lengths and different focus, which can be quite nice in getting a sense of what works best for you. And there's some really great courses out there as well. We've listed some there, and some of those are actually free as well, which can be a really nice way to get into mindfulness in a little bit more depth. Next slide, please. If after watching the talk you do feel like you would benefit from further support, if your child is a patient in the cardiology team, either at Bristol or University Hospital Wales, you can find out about additional psychology support. So the best way to do this is to go via your child's healthcare team, or to speak to one of the cardiac clinical nurse specialists across the network, and they'll be able to let you know about support that's available. Please remember that there is other support that's available during admissions or within the hospital. So we've got really great support from the play team, from the family support team, and also the chaplaincy, if any of those feel helpful at any point. And we've got some online wellbeing toolkits that you can access as well. So these cover a range of different topics. So we've got ones for children, parents, adults and teenagers on all sorts of different topics, such as managing stress, how to discuss your condition with friends, sleep. So do take a look at those if any of that sounds helpful. Next slide, please. As I said at the beginning, we hope that this wasn't a distressing webinar to watch. However, if you are feeling that you are in need of immediate support, please do seek that. So there are services out there that are listed that can provide a listening ear when you need them. So Samaritans and Shouts are available sort of 24/7 if you are feeling that you need support. If you are in crisis and really do feel unable to keep yourself safe, we'd ask you to either attend A&E or call 999, or to contact your local crisis team. So the number there is for the Bristol team. There are other crisis teams in other locations, but if you're not quite sure about those, then please do just get in contact with your GP, because they'll be able to advise you on support that's available. And the same goes for not feeling in crisis, but feeling that you would benefit from accessing perhaps a talking therapy or mental health support. Your GP will be aware of what different services are available locally. Okay, so that's the end of the main webinar. So I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time for coming today and attending the webinar. Hopefully that gives it a bit of a whistle-stop tour of mindfulness, and also some ideas for some practices that you can use to take that further. And we've got a few minutes now for any questions that anyone might have. So yeah, do share those in the chat or the Q&A section if there's anything you'd like to ask myself and Amy.